Now, point number 5 is, man, I don't know where these guys come up with these points. Thought process. If we were a product of mere coincidence, then our thought process would have been the same. But that's certainly not the case. Even in the same age group and same gender, two people would not agree on everything. Now, the first problem is, the thing is, if we are a product of mere coincidence, then our thought process is randomized. It's highly likely to be randomized because we
Yeah.
are not as perfect as let's say a conveyor belt making Toyota cars. Those
Mm.
would be identical, but since we are a product of coincidence and random processes, there's a lot of diversity. Not every human being is entirely the same. Point number 5 is actually the opposite of what it should logically follow.
Just look at a factory. Look at a phone factory, for example, and the phone factory is making this one line of phones. For
Hmm,
example, as the A series in Samsung Galaxy in a Samsung factory,
hmm,
the A5 phones would all be identical. There would be no difference in them, in the way they function, in the way they in it, like when it comes to the properties they have, when it comes to the specs, when it comes to the resolution of the camera, when it comes to the screen,
hmm,
screen resolution, everything is identical.
hmm,
That is what we would expect from a guided or a non-random process. But
hmm,
at best, what this shows is that there is diversity among human beings and among species in general. It
hmm.
does not prove that therefore God exists.
In fact, it actually, what point number 5 says is, if we were a product of mere coincidence, our thought processes would have been the same. No, if we are, which we are, a product of mere coincidence, then our thought process has to be different. So that's what I have to say. Point number 6, purpose of life. The animal's purpose is to live, is to eat, drink, and reproduce in order to survive. Well, I would say survive and replicate. And having a shelter and everything is a secondary uh, purpose in a way, but survive and replication are the
I
main
wouldn't say
purposes.
that's a purpose. I wouldn't say that's a purpose. I would say that's a function of life.
That's
That is
yes.
how that is how animals and insects and everything alive, everything sentient, they function. They survive and they reproduce, but that is
Hmm,
not an ultimate purpose for anybody
hmm,
to
hmm,
be like
hmm,
for example, one of like purpose, like what do you mean by purpose? I'm not sure what he means, when he says the purpose of life. Like, is what is purpose, like a few questions. What is purpose? Is purpose objective? Is it applicable like to everyone, like whether you can paint everyone with the same brush? Because I could disagree that my purpose in life is to be a chef, for example.
hmm,
That would differ from somebody else's purpose. And like, is purpose implied in a ultimate goal, or is it implied in, what sense is it implied in? It's not clear what he means by that. Like, even if you look at animals, for example, one of the purposes, I don't think purpose is limited to one thing. I think purpose is a range of things that an animal or a human being wants to achieve during its lifetime. So, for example, one of the purposes of ants, for example, is to obey the queen. They're
hmm,
obliged to do that. That is one of their
hmm,
purposes. But the other purpose is also to survive during winter by collecting food in the summer. That is also a purpose.
hmm.
So, is there one purpose or are there many purposes? Can purpose branch out into different branches, like, it's not clear, you know?
Well, it depends on it can like for first of all, in my opinion, purpose in life is subjective, and life itself, look, the universe wouldn't care if we stop existing, or if, even if life on planet Earth, or even if there is life on any other planet as well, all life altogether stops to exist, the universe would not care. There is no extrinsic purpose. The only purpose there is the one we give to ourselves. And just to complete his point,
Right.
he extended the point to well, but it doesn't explain anything about our emotions. I'm sorry, I skipped the point. He said, yes, the humans are far more intellect beings than animals. They cannot have a same purpose of life. Well, they do not. They don't have the same purpose of life as a tiger would have, or an ant would have. And
Yeah.
ants would not have the same purpose in life, or honeybees won't have the same purpose, the worker bees or the queen bee, as a chimpanzee or a human or a dolphin would have. So they all are different. Being a bit more intellectual, or being more intelligent, doesn't mean that your purpose in life is extrinsically superior than the purpose of life of other creatures. It, even
I
if
mean,
it is superior, then it's only
just think
subjective to
about
you.
just think about the human beings itself. Like, you know, when we studied business studies, we had
Hmm.
something, we learned about something called Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? So
Hmm.
Maslow, basically, he said that there are different stages of need. The bottom stage, the most basic stage is survival. So if you're at the
Hmm.
survival stage, your purpose would be to survive. But if you're at a, for example, if you're at a higher stage, maybe your purpose is no longer to survive.
Hmm.
It's looking for appreciation in your work field. So even among human beings, the purpose is subjective. One of the things the purpose of life is subjective on is the stage at which you're in. For example, for a homeless person, his purpose would be to just go by, just survive. But for a rich person, his purpose wouldn't be, surviving. He would
Hmm.
probably have other things to worry about,
Building
like
a
for example,
career, a business, or expanding the
yeah,
business.
or how to make better deals. That could be a purpose. So
That could be a purpose.
it also depends on which stage you're in,
Hmm.
so it varies. It's not set to one thing. That's
Yes.
not how purpose works.
Even so, I think just to steel man your point, even if we talk about a single, like an individual, even their purposes may fluctuate, vary, and change.
It's drastically different, and it depends on your circumstance.
Hmm. It does. All right. So we have the seventh point here, emotions. And I think in the comments, you gave a better answer than I did. Actually, quite a few points there were where you gave a better answer. So, about emotions, Darwinism teaches us how we came to existence by evolving after a period of time, but it
Mhm.
doesn't explain anything about our emotions. Where did our
Right.
emotions come from? They couldn't have come from apes. Oh man, this is argument from look, I'm going to call it out as argument from personal incredulity. Well, they just couldn't come from apes. I don't know where emotions came from. They sound pretty uh unique and uh like spooky. I'm not sure how they work. Therefore, they couldn't have come from apes or evolution, but
Therefore,
I'm
God exists.
therefore God must have given it to us, or therefore God exists. That's what he's trying to imply
Again,
here.
this is basically the God of the gaps fallacy at play. Like, have you noticed that most of the arguments are based on the God of the gaps fallacy? I don't
Yes.
know. we don't know, therefore God. Like,
Hmm.
it
Yes.
doesn't. The way I see emotions is that emotions are an inherent part of anything that's sentient, anything that is able to feel, that is able to perceive. Emotion is inherently a property of a sentient being. Now, how this emotion came to, like, how this emotion developed, what were the processes that were involved, perhaps we don't know now. But there is no reason to assume that,
Hmm.
there is no reason to just, make the leap that therefore God exists. That once again is the God of the gaps fallacy. And most of the times, the thing about these types of argument is that they will have one or two or more than one logical fallacies all acting together. Like,
Hmm.
most of these conclusions, they are based on the God of the gaps fallacy.
Yes, God of the
And
gaps fallacy, and I would rather say that that combined with argument from ignorance. And one more
yeah,
thing, just like you said, that every sentient being is has emotions. I know, like some people might disagree, but I agree with you. And here's why: even if we take a basic, like a unicellular organism, there
mm,
that organism still has emotions. It has the emotion, a positive emotion when he receives energy, and a negative emotion when it gets eaten. And that's why you would find I think, I'm not sure, single unicellular organisms, but the basic simplest of the multicellular organisms as well, they would run away from predators and go towards food, positive and negative emotions. So even the basics and the
yeah,
simplest form of lives show exhibit some kind of emotional response. So obviously apes, just like he mentioned that they couldn't have come from apes. Well, come on, man. Apes are way more complex, and they have total social, like they have social circles and what do you call
apes
it?
apes apes display self-sacrificial behavior just like us. you
Hmm.
know a lot of the things the apes do, we can see similar traits in human beings. So it wouldn't be justified to say that, apes don't have emotions, or we do not have a similar, we have no, like, there is nothing in common between us and apes, and our emotions, it just came from, it just fell from the sky or something, or just magically appeared because God snapped his fingers and said, be, and it is.
Hmm.
you know
I think
so
kun fire kun, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
yeah.
it's interesting, I always wondered how this be and it is thing works.
Hmm.
It's like, it's incredible. It's something you can, like, it's beyond your comprehension. Like, what is it? Be and it is. What does he do? Snap his fingers, just say something, and things just magically pop into being? Like, did someone do kun on God, and that's why he's into being magically? But now he's an atheist or something. We don't know.
That's a good point. Look, I think, but by the way, I can argue with theists, and even theists would agree that God himself is an atheist. Unless that they could argue that at least he believes in himself, therefore he would be a theist then.
God is
And,
very similar to Pharaoh from the Quran. The Pharaoh thought he was a god, and he did
hmm,
not believe in a higher being or deity. And this God thinks he's the ultimate God, and there is no higher being, deity than him, and he's always going to live. So
hmm, hmm.
all the questions he gives in the Quran, we can throw them back at this God.
Oh,
You know?
yes, yes, oh, definitely. Like, and the thing you just said that what's up with kun fayakun? He just said be, and it was. The thing with it is one way to look at it is they didn't know nothing, and they just started, like, made up uh, a god or something. And when people started asking question, well, how did he do this, how did he do
Yeah.
that, how does it rain, like God knows everything, right? Well, God doesn't even have to know everything. He just say be and it is.